Hi, I'm Chris from Airwindows, and hey, you can do this. Listen to the drums. Welcome to Airwindows Air2. Looks kind of like this. So here's the deal. This is based off of similar modifications like I made to Air2. Air hadn't been updated in that way, but I've done something a little extra with Air. A couple of things extra, in fact, and I hope you enjoy them. You'll see a couple of different controls in here, but one of them is, well, let me show you. We've got this dry wet, and you can hear I can turn it on to the microphone as well, and then that makes the microphone be much brighter as well. We're adding glitter to these drums, which are fairly loud, and then, in fact, they're so loud, maybe I should I'm just dialing them back a bit. Here's the thing, and I'll dial that bass back a bit as well. I'm actually working on being able to do that using a control surface, and that being one of the things that Logic can do. Working on that one, many things I'm working on, but check this out. See how it says dry wet? Well, both of these things. And when we go all wet, you're getting a lot of boost, and you're not getting any of the dry sound. This is not the same as what we've got in Energy. Energy is more or less geared to do a substantial boost, and then the dry wet is all about kind of bringing in normalcy so that you can get excessive boost or not so much. But Air2 goes beyond that to the point where you get complete excessiveness. And I can show you what each of these things sounds like. For instance, our Air band sounds like this. That's hiss. That's only the very top end of everything. I can throw a little bit of that onto the microphone while I'm at it. Or we can do glitter. Actually, I had hiss and air on the microphone. We can do glitter. And that's kind of 15K-ish. That's sitting around the 15K range. And then we have air, which is not the same thing as the third band in Energy. This is a different algorithm. And I found it's a kind of nice 10K-ish air boost. The Energy version of this is rat. It has a much more aggressive, kind of edgy sound, but this is a little broader. And it's a good sort of top-end kind of thing. So here's where it gets interesting. I've got another control in here, and it's called Silk. So if we add Silk to the highs, that's adding a second harmonic distortion. It's an asymmetrical distortion, and it starts at virtually nothing. You're actually hearing a tiny amount of it already. And the more you add, you'll start to feel a little bit of low end in there because it's an asymmetrical clip. And the idea is this is a softening and one-sided clipping of the high band. You can hear it kind of scrunching a little bit there. We can do that with glitter as well. Compare that to totally unclipped. It is scaled so that you can put small amounts of in there without it getting messy. Like I'll show you messy. You can hear it's distorting super hard here. But down here, it's not distorting super hard, but it's still coming through. And of course, we can bring in small amounts of it using the dry wet. Get it maybe a little more distorted than that. And the amount of boost that we can add before we start peaking out the raw signal, the dry signal, extends quite far. Effectively, the way this works is the dry wet acts a little bit like energy in that it'll keep giving you more of the air boost, keep giving you more as you go, and it's not attenuating it until we get to 3/4 of the way. 0.75, still full volume dry, but then it goes away. And by the time we get to full wet, you have raw Air2 at whatever setting you're using. And we can do the negative settings as well. With whatever silk is being applied only to the high frequency stuff. And of course we can combine them. Here's an interesting combination. Check this out. That sounds very bright, but nothing but top. Very narrowly focused band. And then if we move this around a little bit, we can bring in other stuff even by subtracting the hiss band. So if we're using the dry wet and adding only that very top end stuff, which is glitter of -1 and air +1, you can add a lot of top onto that without it thickening up the upper mid-range significantly, because the raw sound is basically just this. And of course we can ease it back into a different range here, or just add both, or distort the heck out of everything. It's a pretty flexible thing. And of course we can also throw that onto the microphone that I'm speaking through and throw some silk onto that as well. And basically do this whole thing where we've got the energy style high energy boosts and lots of added brightness. And since it's Air2, this is all being undersampled. What you're hearing is all of this happening at 96K, and the air bands are working just the same as if they were at 44.1K. So there you have it. Air2 is my most recent plugin, and I'm kind of going through and addressing things that benefit with the undersampling, because this was not as usable at high sample rates as it is with the undersampling. It would still work, but all of the frequencies would be shifted, and if you have something like glitter and you're running it at 192K in the original Air, what it was boosting was so high frequency that you couldn't actually use it. Let me do the same trick with the highs here to tone down the amount of boostiness on my voice, because that was a little exaggerated. And I think you've seen these enough, so I'll go back to my main camera and so on and so forth. If that background looks kind of crazy to you, I'm working on some of the visualization stuff. As you can see, the synthesizer doesn't look exactly the same as it did because I'm trying to get into a zone where I'm recording songs and working on my arrangement card game thingy. It's all very complicated. I'm putting in a lot of hours on this stuff. So Air2 is downloadable, and it is AU, Mac, Windows, and Linux VST. And the AU and Mac VSTs are both old school and modern signed compiles for Big Sur and so on. And they are free because I'm Patreon supported. That's how this works. So you don't have to pay me anything. I'm giving you this stuff because it seemed as if you might be able to use it. Now, as far as things I might be able to use, if you'd like YouTube to show my videos to more people, you know what to do. I don't have to tell you. And if you would have bought this plugin at a price of, let's say $50 for a permanent license on all of the computers that you've ever seen, plus you get the source code, pretty good deal, then you can just throw the equivalent amount per year on my Patreon. The Patreon is still operating on the basis of anything that I make over $2,000 a month, because I can live on $2,000 a month, goes toward saving up money to buy a fancy sampler. And I know I still have work to do on the fancy sampler, which is an Cmu E6400 Ultra that I bought to model the Z-plane filters in it. I know I have that to work on as well. I'm doing things as fast as I can, but probably in the next couple of weeks I can start running test sounds through that. Samplers didn't actually end up becoming part of my regular workflow, and that's just a thing. I just ended up not being a very sampler guy, even if I had one. But I can definitely put this thing through its paces, much like, well, you know how I bought a Mackie mixer in order to do Mackie? And I did Mackie and Mackie Q, and they came out pretty good. And before I had the Maxi mixer, my attempts of doing that were terrible. Well, maybe not terrible, but the version of channel that has the Mackie, etc. models on them really weren't very accurate, so I generally do better with this stuff when I have something to work from. And that's on the agenda as far as working with the Cmu Sampler. I am looking forward to doing that. It's going to be kind of challenging, and it's going to be kind of like test tones and fooling with clips of audio, but that's what I did with Mackie, and that was fun. It's not going to happen by next week. Next week I have a new take on bright ambience. In other words, you'll see bright ambience 3, because that never got the undersampling code. And I was told by somebody like, yeah, this is great, but it sounds kind of different at 96K. Well, I should be able to address that. That's where I'm at for now. I hope you like Air2. It's a lot more useful than Air. And, even if you're running at 44.1K, which a lot of people are, the new implementation of dry wet that allows you to do just raw algorithm output, and the addition of that silk thing, which is a trick that Neve porticos do by running voltage through a hardware transformer. Now, I'm going to point out this is not specifically a transformer emulation, and I'm not going to stick anybody's brand names on this because this is not a Neve clone or something like that. No. What this is let's take that concept of taking an EQ band and running it into some second harmonic distortion and calling that silk. I think that's a very appropriate title. I think that's a reasonable way to do it. Hopefully I'm not going to run into any issues with it, because I don't think that you can necessarily copyright silk. If you can, I'll throw an update and we'll be calling it Sow's Ear. As you know, I can throw updates out real quick, but I do not think that this is going to be a problem, and it is a concept I'll be able to use in future. So I hope you like Air2 with its new little extra intense version of the all-wet setup, and with the soul control that lets you do that second harmonic distortion on frequencies that you're adding to the signal. And it doesn't do them on everything. If you wanted to do that, you should use my single-ended triode plugin, because that is what that does. And that is already out. I got the code from that to put it into Air2. Hope you like it. And thank you very much. Talk to you later. Bye-bye.